A scream pierces the night at Crestwood Manor, shattering the elegance of a lavish dinner party. Sir Reginald Ashburn lies dead in a locked cellar, a Persian dagger through his heart, the key in his pocket, the window bolted. Who could have committed an impossible murder? Was it the nervous solicitor with secrets in his ledger, the glamorous widow with diamonds that hide a past, or the quiet botanist whose notebook holds more than sketches? As shadows move in the garden and a single word time whispers the truth, Hercule Poirot steps into the maze of lies. Can he unravel the deception before the killer strikes again? Chapter 1. The gathering at Crestwood Manor in the drowsy heat of a late August afternoon in 1935. Crestwood Manor stood as a monument to old English grandeur, its ivy-clad walls basking in the golden light of a fading summer. Nestled in the rolling hills of Devon, the estate belonged to Sir Reginald Ashburn, a widower of considerable wealth and impeccable reputation. The manor's rose gardens were in full bloom, their scent mingling with the faint tang of the sea carried on the breeze. It was, to all appearances, a perfect setting for a weekend of polite society, yet beneath the surface a subtle unease simmered. Sir Reginald had invited a small but eclectic circle of guests to celebrate his 60th birthday. The guest list was a curious mix. His niece, Clara Ashburn, a spirited young woman of 25 with a penchant for modern poetry, Dr. Maurice Langley, a retired physician whose sharp eyes belied his genial demeanor, Mrs. Evelyn Carver, a glamorous widow with a fortune rumored to rival Sir Reginald's, Mr. Leonard Baxter, a solicitor with a nervous habit of adjusting his spectacles, and Miss Florence Devereux, a spinster of indeterminate age whose passion for botany was matched only by her sharp tongue. Rounding out the party was Captain Arthur Hastings, recently returned from Argentina, whose presence was a nod to old friendships with Sir Reginald from their Oxford days. The drawing room, with its polished mahogany and heavy velvet drapes, buzzed with restrained civility as the guests gathered for pre-dinner drinks. Sir Reginald, resplendent in a tailored dinner jacket, raised a glass of sherry. To good company and fine evenings, he toasted, his voice warm but tinged with an odd melancholy. Clara smiled brightly, though her eyes darted to her uncle. With a flicker of concern, Dr. Langley sipped his drink thoughtfully, while Mrs. Carver's laughter rang out, perhaps a touch too loud. Mr. Baxter fidgeted, and Miss Devereux, clutching a small notebook, scribbled something with a secretive air. Dinner was served at precisely 7 o'clock. As was Sir Reginald's custom, the table gleamed with silver and crystal, the menu boasting a consomme, roast pheasant, and a delicate lemon souffle. Conversation flowed, though not without strain. Mrs. Carver spoke animatedly of her travels in Monte Carlo, her diamond earrings catching the candlelight. Dr. Langley, seated beside her, murmured polite responses, but seemed distracted, his gaze lingering on Sir Reginald. Clara, meanwhile, deflected questions about her recent engagement to a young artist in London. Her answers clipped. Miss Devereux, ever observant, remarked dryly on the rarity of a particular orchid in the manor's conservatory, a comment that seemed to unsettle Mr. Baxter. As the clock struck 9, Sir Reginald rose, excusing himself to retrieve a bottle of his finest port from the cellar. "A special vintage for a special occasion," he said with a smile, though his hand trembled slightly as he set down his napkin. The guests continued their chatter, but a strange tension settled over the room, as if the air itself held its breath. Minutes passed. The clock ticked on at 10 minutes past 9. A piercing scream shattered the calm. Clara leapt to her feet, her face pale. "That was Uncle," she cried, rushing toward the cellar stairs, the others close behind. They found Sir Reginald sprawled at the foot of the cellar steps, his eyes wide and unseeing, a dark stain spreading across his shirt front. A small, ornate dagger lay beside him, its blade glinting in the dim light. Dr. Langley knelt, pressing his fingers to Sir Reginald's neck, then shook his head gravely. "He's dead," he said, his voice steady but grim. Stamped through the heart. The guests stood frozen, their faces a tableau of shock, fear, and perhaps guilt. Miss Devereux clutched her notebook tighter, her lips pursed. Mrs. Carver's hand flew to her throat, her diamonds trembling. Mr. Baxter's spectacles slipped down his nose and Clara swayed, clutching Hastings for support. "Who could have done this?" Clara whispered, her voice breaking. "Hastings." His soldier's instincts kicking in, scanned the scene. The cellar door had been locked from the inside, the key still in Sir Reginald's pocket. The narrow staircase offered no hiding place, and the only other exit, a small window high on the wall, was bolted shut. Yet someone, somehow, had committed murder in this locked and lonely space. As the guests retreated to the drawing room, the local constable was summoned. But Hastings knew this was no ordinary case. He thought of his old friend, the meticulous Belgian detective whose mind could unravel the most tangled of mysteries. "We need Poirot," he said aloud, his voice firm with resolve. Chapter 2. The shadow of the Crimeth drawing room at Crestwood Manor, so recently alive with the clink of glasses and the murmur of polite conversation, now felt like a stage frozen in the aftermath of tragedy. The guests sat in uneasy silence, their faces pale under the soft glow of the chandelier. Sir Reginald Ashburn's body had been covered with a sheet and left in the cellar, pending the arrival of the local authorities. But the weight of his death hung over the room like a storm cloud. Captain Arthur Hastings stood by the fireplace, his hands clasped behind his back, his mind racing with the impossibility of the locked cellar and the glint of that ornate dagger. Clara Ashburn sat on a velvet settee, her eyes red-rimmed but dry, clutching a handkerchief. Mrs. Evelyn Carver, her composure fraying, paced near the window, her diamond earrings catching the light with each turn. Dr. Maurice Langley leaned against the mantel, his physician's calm barely masking a flicker of unease. Mr. Leonard Baxter, the solicitor, sat hunched in an armchair, his fingers twitching as he adjusted his spectacles repeatedly. Miss Florence Devereux, ever the outlier, perched on a straight-backed chair, her notebook open on her lap, her pen scratching faint notes as if cataloguing the very air. The local constable, a ruddy-faced man named Inspector Grayson, arrived shortly after 10, his heavy boots echoing on the manor's polished floors. He was a practical man, accustomed to poachers and petty theft, not murder in a grand estate. After a cursory examination of the cellar, he returned to the drawing room, notebook in hand, his brow furrowed. "A bad business, this," he said, gruffly. Sir Reginald was stabbed. No doubt about it. The door was locked, the key in his pocket. No sign of a struggle, save for the wound itself. Anyone care to explain how this happened? The guests exchanged glances, each waiting for another to speak. Clara's voice broke the silence, tremulous but clear. Uncle went to the cellar, alone. We were all here in this room when we heard the scream. It was just after 9, wasn't it? Captain Hastings. Hastings nodded. 10 minutes past 9 by the clock. We all rushed down together. Inspector Grayson scribbled a note, and no one left the room before the scream. A chorus of murmurs confirmed this, though Miss Devereux's pen paused, and her sharp eyes flicked toward Mrs. Carver, who had stopped pacing. "I was at the window," Mrs. Carver said quickly, her voice a touch too bright. "I needed air. It's so dreadfully warm tonight." Grayson raised an eyebrow but pressed on, questioning each guest about their movements. Dr. Langley admitted to stepping into the hall briefly at 8:30 to fetch a cigar. From his coat pocket, Mr. Baxter claimed he had remained seated, though his nervous fidgeting suggested otherwise. Miss Devereux, with her usual precision, stated she had not moved from her chair, her attention fixed on her botanical notes. Clara, tearful, insisted she had been pouring tea when her uncle left for the cellar. The inspector's questions yielded little clarity, and his frustration grew. A locked door, a dead man, and no witnesses. He muttered, "This is beyond me. We'll need Scotland Yard." "I reckon." Hastings, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "If I may, Inspector, I know someone who could help. A friend of mine, Hercule Poirot. He's a detective Belgian, but the finest mind for puzzles like this. He's staying nearby, at a cottage in St. Mary Mead. I could send for him." Grayson hesitated, then nodded. "Do it. We'll secure the scene until he arrives." Hastings dispatched a telegram, and within the hour, a familiar figure appeared at the manor's threshold. Hercule Poirot, small and immaculate, stepped into the drawing room with the air of a man who owned the very space he occupied. His patent leather shoes gleamed, his mustache was a work of art, and his green eyes sparkled with quiet intensity. "Mon ami Hastings," he said, his voice rich with warmth, "you have summoned Poirot to a most intriguing affair. A murder, you say, in a locked cellar? C'est magnifique, a challenge for the little grey cells." The guests stared, some with curiosity, others with unease. Poirot's gaze swept the room, lingering on each face as if reading a book written in invisible ink. "Monsieur l'Inspecteur," he said, bowing slightly to Grayson, "I am at your service. But first, I must see the scene of the crime." Led by Grayson and Hastings, Poirot descended the narrow cellar stairs. The air was cool and musty, the stone walls lined with racks of dusty bottles. Sir Reginald's body lay where it had fallen, the sheet now stained with blood. The dagger, small and ornate with an ivory handle, rested nearby, untouched. Poirot knelt, his movements precise, his eyes darting over every detail, the position of the body, the angle of the wound, the key in Sir Reginald's pocket, the bolted window high above. "Curieux," Poirot murmured, his fingers brushing the dagger's handle without touching it. "This weapon is not English. It is of Eastern design, perhaps Persian, and the wound clean, precise, straight to the heart. A killer with nerve, or one with desperation." He stood, dusting his hands with a silk handkerchief. The door, it was locked from the inside. And the key was in the victim's pocket. Grayson nodded. No one could have got in or out, Mr. Poirot. It's a proper mystery. Poirot's lips curved into a faint smile. A mystery, yes, but not insoluble. The truth, it hides in the details. Tell me, Hastings, what did you observe when you found the body? Hastings recounted the scene, the scream, the rush to the cellar, the locked door, the bolted window. Poirot listened, his head tilted, his eyes half closed. And the scream, he said softly, it was Sir Reginald's. You are certain? Clara said it was her uncle's. Hastings replied, she seemed sure. Poirot's smile widened. Seemed. Mon ami. That is a word of great importance. We shall see. Returning to the drawing room, Poirot addressed the guests with a calm authority that silenced their restless murmurs. Mesdames et messieurs, a terrible crime has been committed. Sir Reginald Ashburn is dead, and one among you, or perhaps more than one, knows more than they have said. I, Hercule Poirot, will uncover the truth. But I warn you, I see everything, the smallest gesture, the fleeting glance, the word unspoken. They all speak to Poirot. Mrs. Carver gave a nervous laugh, quickly stifled. Miss Devereux's pen scratched faster. Clara's handkerchief twisted in her hands. Dr. Langley met Poirot's gaze steadily, but Mr. Baxter's spectacles slipped again, betraying his uneasy doubt as the clock struck midnight. Poirot turned to Hastings. Tomorrow, mon ami, we begin in earnest. The little grey cells, they are already at work. There is one word, one small word that will unlock this mystery. But for now, we observe, we listen, and we wait. Chapter 3. The arrival of Poirot's method. The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of Crestwood Manor, casting long shadows across the drawing room where the guests had reconvened. The air was thick with unease, the previous night's horror lingering like a stubborn fog. Breakfast had been a somber affair, with trays of untouched toast and cold coffee left on the sideboard. The guests, still in their evening attire from the night before, sat in a tense circle, their faces edged with fatigue and suspicion. Captain Arthur Hastings stood near the French doors, watching the dew-laden rose garden, his thoughts anchored by the memory of Poirot's calm assurance in the face of the impossible. Hercule Poirot, immaculate as ever in a crisp grey suit, entered the room at precisely 9 o'clock. His small frame seemed to command the space, his mustache perfectly symmetrical, his eyes bright with purpose. Inspector Grayson trailed behind, his notebook clutched tightly, his expression one of reluctant deference to the Belgian detective. Mesdames et messieurs, Poirot began, his voice smooth and deliberate. We are gathered to confront a crime most heinous. Sir Reginald Ashburn, a man of honor, lies dead, and the truth of his murder lies within this room. Poirot will find it, for the truth cannot hide from the order and method of the little grey cells. Clara Ashburn, her face pale, but composed, looked up sharply. Mr. Poirot, surely you don't think one of us? Her voice faltered, her fingers twisting the handkerchief in her lap. Poirot raised a hand, his gesture both gentle and commanding. Mademoiselle Clara, I think nothing yet. I observe, I listen, I arrange the facts, and the facts, they will speak. He turned to Inspector Grayson. The coroner's report, s'il vous plaît. What does it tell us? Grayson cleared his throat, flipping open his notebook. Preliminary findings, Mr. Poirot. Sir Reginald died between 9 and 9:15 last night. Cause of death: a single stab wound to the heart, delivered with force. The dagger Persian, as you noted, has no fingerprints. The cellar door was locked, key in his pocket, and the window bolted from the inside. No signs of forced entry. Poirot nodded, his eyes narrowing. And the scream at 10 minutes past 9. This is precise. We must establish the exact movements of each person at that moment. He turned to the guests, his gaze sweeping over them like a spotlight. I will speak with each of you alone, in the library. We begin with Mademoiselle Clara. The library, with its leather-bound books and heavy oak furniture, was a fitting stage for Poirot's interrogations. Clara sat across from him, her posture rigid, her eyes fixed on a point beyond his shoulder. Hastings stood by the door, notebook in hand, ready to record Poirot's observations. Mademoiselle, Poirot began, his tone gentle but probing. You were close to your uncle. Yes. Tell me of him and of last night. Clara's lips trembled. Uncle Reginald was kind, generous. He raised me after my parents died. He was troubled lately, though. He spoke of debts, of someone pressing him, but he wouldn't say who. Last night, he seemed distracted, almost afraid, when he went to the cellar. I thought nothing of it until the scream. Poirot leaned forward, his fingers steepled. This scream, you are certain it was his? Yes, Clara said, then hesitated. It sounded like him, sharp, sudden. I ran to the cellar at once, and you saw no one else on the stairs or in the hall. No one. We were all together in the drawing room. Poirot's eyes gleamed. All together, you say? Yet Madame Carver was at the window, and Dr. Langley had stepped out earlier. The truth, mademoiselle, is a mosaic. Each piece matters. Clara's interview set the tone for the others. Dr. Langley, next, spoke with clinical precision, claiming he had returned to the drawing room well before 9 and heard the scream with the others. His calm demeanor faltered only when Poirot asked about his relationship with Sir Reginald. We were colleagues once, Langley admitted, but there was a disagreement years ago, a medical matter. It was nothing. Mrs. Evelyn Carver, resplendent in a silk shawl despite the morning's grim purpose, was theatrical in her responses. I barely knew Sir Reginald, she insisted, her voice breathy, a charming host. But we moved in different circles. I was at the window, yes, but only for a moment. The room was so stuffy. Poirot noted her fluttering hands, the way her eyes avoided his daughter. Leonard Baxter, the solicitor, was a bundle of nerves, his spectacles slipping as he stammered through his account. He had been Sir Reginald's legal adviser, he said, handling his estate. There were financial strains, he admitted, but nothing out of the ordinary for a man of his standing. Poirot's question about the dagger, whether Baxter had seen it before, prompted a too quick denial, followed by a flush of color to his cheeks. Miss Florence Devereux, the last to be questioned, was a study in composure. Her notebook, now closed, rested on her lap like a shield. I was writing notes on the Manor's orchids, she said coolly. I saw nothing, heard nothing until the scream. Sir Reginald was a pleasant man, but I am a botanist, Mr. Poirot, not a gossip. I keep to my own affairs. Poirot smiled faintly. And yet, mademoiselle, Your notebook it is most active. What do you write in it? If not the affairs of others. Her lips thinned. Observations, Mr. Poirot. The world is full of patterns. If one knows where to look. As the interviews concluded, Poirot and Hastings returned to the cellar for a second examination. Poirot paced the small space, his eyes lingering on the dagger, the wine racks, the bolted window. Hastings, he said, there is something here that does not fit. The dagger. It is too deliberate, too exotic. And the scream, why does it trouble me? We must reconstruct the moments before the crime, the order, the method. They will reveal all. Back in the drawing room, Poirot addressed the group. Each of you has spoken, and each has told me something, but not everything. There is a word, a single word, that will unlock this puzzle. I do not yet know it, but I will. For now, I ask you to remain here at Crestwood Manor. The truth, it is close. As the guests dispersed, Hastings caught Poirot's arm. What do you make of it, Poirot? The locked door, the dagger, it's impossible. Poirot's eyes twinkled. Impossible, mon ami. None. The impossible is merely the truth we have not yet seen. Come, we have work to do. Chapter 4. The questions begin. The library at Crestwood Manor, with its walls of leather-bound tomes and the faint scent of aged paper, became Hercule Poirot's stage as he continued his methodical interrogations. The morning had deepened into noon, the sunlight now streaming through the tall windows, illuminating motes of dust that danced in the air. Each guest, summoned one by one, faced Poirot's piercing gaze, his questions as precise as a surgeon's. Scalpel. Captain Arthur Hastings, stationed by the door, scribbled notes, marveling at how Poirot's gentle demeanor masked a relentless pursuit of truth. Poirot's interviews were not mere conversations. They were a delicate dance of psychology and observation. He began the session with Mrs. Evelyn Carver, whose silk shawl and glittering earrings seemed out of place in the somber atmosphere. She perched on the edge of an armchair, her smile brittle. "Madam Carver," Poirot said, his voice soft but unyielding, "you were at the window when Sir Reginald left for the cellar. Tell me, what did you see outside?" Mrs. Carver's fingers toyed with her shawl. "Nothing, Mr. Poirot, just the garden, the roses. It was dark, you see, and I was preoccupied." Her eyes darted away, and Poirot noted the faint tremor in her hands. "Preoccupied, madam? With what?" "Precisement. Oh, nothing important," she said quickly, "just thoughts. The evening was so warm. I needed air." Her laugh was forced, and Poirot's eyes narrowed slightly. "And the scream," he pressed. "You heard it clearly? From where you stood?" "Yes, of course. It was dreadful. I turned at once, and we all ran to the cellar." Poirot leaned back, his fingers steepled. "And yet, madam, you were the farthest from the door. Curious, is it not, that you kept pace with the others?" Mrs. Carver's smile faltered. I was frightened, Mr. Poirot. One doesn't think in such moments." Poirot nodded, dismissing her with a polite bow, but his eyes lingered on her retreating figure. Hastings whispered, "She's hiding something, Poirot. That laugh, it was all nerves." "Oui, mon ami," Poirot murmured. "But what does she hide? Fear, guilt, or something else entirely?" Next came Dr. Maurice Langley, his physician's calm restored. but his eyes wary. Poirot's questions turned to Sir Reginald's health. He was robust for his age, Langley said. His tone clipped, a touch of rheumatism, perhaps, but nothing serious. I prescribed a mild tonic last month, nothing more. Poirot tilted his head. And this disagreement you mentioned, Doctor, from years past, it was, you said, a medical matter. Care to elaborate? Langley's jaw tightened. It was professional, Mr. Poirot. A difference of opinion over a patient's treatment. Old history, irrelevant now. Renest irrelevant, Poirot said softly. The past, it has a way of shaping the present. Tell me, did Sir Reginald ever speak of enemies? Langley hesitated. He mentioned a business rival once. A man named Hargreaves. Said he was ruthless. But it was vague. I didn't press. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Hargreaves. Bon, and where were you, Doctor? At 10 minutes past 9. In the drawing room with the others. I'd returned from fetching my cigar well before then. Poirot dismissed him, and Hastings noted the doctor's steady gait, as if he were consciously controlling his composure. He's too calm, Hastings said. It's unnatural, or practiced, Poirot replied, his voice thoughtful. The doctor, he knows more than he says. Mr. Leonard Baxter was next, his nervous energy filling the room. His spectacles slipped thrice during the interview, each adjustment a telltale sign of discomfort. Poirot's questions focused on Sir Reginald's finances. He was solvent. Baxter insisted, his voice high. The estate is vast, but there were debts manageable ones. A loan from a London bank. Some investments gone sour. Nothing to cause this. And the dagger, Poirot said, his tone casual. You have seen it before. Perhaps in Sir Reginald's collection. Baxter's face paled. No, never. It's unusual, isn't it? Persian, you said. He fumbled with his spectacles again, and Poirot's smile was almost imperceptible. Miss Florence Devereux, the final interviewee, entered with her notebook clutched like a talisman. Her answers were crisp, her demeanor unshaken. I was writing about the orchids, she said. Sir Reginald's conservatory has a rare cypripedium. I was noting its characteristics when the scream came. Poirot's eyes fixed on the notebook. May I see it, mademoiselle? Her grip tightened. It's private, Mr. Poirot. Botanical notes, nothing more. Perhaps, Poirot said, but the smallest detail may hold the key. You will permit me to glance at it later. She nodded reluctantly, and Poirot dismissed her with a bow. As she left, Hastings whispered, that notebook. Poirot hits more than orchids, isn't it? Undoubtedly, Poirot said. She observes, as I do. But what does she see? After the interviews, Poirot and Hastings returned to the cellar, where Inspector Grayson awaited. Poirot examined the scene again, his attention drawn to a small, dusty footprint near the wine racks, barely visible in the dim light. Curio, he murmured, crouching to study it. Too small for Sir Reginald, and the wrong shape for any man's shoe. A woman, perhaps, or a deliberate deception. Grayson frowned. A footprint. Could have been there for weeks. None, Poirot said firmly. The dust is disturbed only here. Fresh. This is no accident. He rose, his eyes scanning the racks. And see, Hastings. This bottle shuttle Lafayette 1921. It is out of place, turned upside down. Why? Hastings shook his head, baffled. You think it's a clue? Everything is a clue, Poirot said. The footprint, the bottle, the scream, the dagger. They form a pattern. And in that pattern lies the one word that will unlock this crime. As they returned to the drawing room, Poirot addressed the guests. Ms. Amos, you have all spoken, and I have listened. But the truth, it is elusive. Someone here knows more than they say. I ask you to reflect, to search your memory, for Poirot will find the truth, and it will not be kind to those who conceal it. The guests shifted uncomfortably, their eyes avoiding one another. Clara's handkerchief was now a twisted knot. Mrs. Carver's pacing resumed, and Miss Devereux's pen scratched once more. Hastings watched, his heart heavy with the certainty that the killer sat among them, hidden in plain sight. Chapter 5. The red herring's afternoon sun cast a golden haze over Crestwood Manor, but within its walls, the atmosphere grew ever more stifling. The guests, confined to the estate by Inspector Grayson's orders, moved like actors in a play. They hadn't rehearsed, their interactions laced with suspicion. Hercule Poirot, however, seemed untouched by the tension, his demeanor as polished as the silver tea service on the drawing-room sideboard. Captain Arthur Hastings watched his friend with a mix of admiration and frustration, knowing that Poirot's mind was already weaving a tapestry from the threads of their interviews. Though he shared little of his conclusions, Inspector Grayson, eager for progress, had taken a different tack. His suspicions had settled on Mr. Leonard Baxter, the nervous solicitor whose stammering responses and financial ties to Sir Reginald made him an obvious target. He's hiding something, Grayson declared to Poirot and Hastings in the library, his voice low but firm. All that talk of debts and loans, Baxter handled Sir Reginald's accounts. If anyone had a motive, it's him, and those spectacles of his, always slipping mark of a guilty man. If you ask me, Poirot tilted his head, his eyes twinkling with amusement. Monsieur l'Inspecteur, you are quick to seize upon the obvious. But the obvious, it is often a distraction, a red herring. As you English say, we must look beyond the nervous tics and consider the pattern. Grayson frowned. Pattern? The man's a wreck, and he knew more about Sir Reginald's money troubles than anyone. I say we press him harder. Poirot raised a hand. Patience, Inspector. To press too soon is to scatter the pieces of the puzzle. Let us observe Monsieur Baxter, but let us also consider the others. The truth, it is not so easily cornered. Hastings, catching Poirot's eye, sensed that his friend already had a theory, though he kept it maddeningly vague. What about that footprint, Poirot? Hastings asked. You said it was fresh. Could it point to one of the women, Clara? Perhaps, or Mrs. Carver. Poirot's lips curved into a faint smile. The footprint, mon ami, is a clue most intriguing. But we must not leap to conclusions. Come, let us walk the grounds, the manor. It has secrets to share. They stepped into the rose garden, where the air was heavy with the scent of blooms. Poirot paused by a low hedge, his eyes scanning the gravel path that led to the conservatory. See here, Hastings, he said, pointing to a faint indentation in the gravel. Another mark, similar to the one in the cellar, small, delicate, but deliberate. Someone walked here recently, perhaps last night. Hastings squinted at the ground. But how could anyone get from here to the cellar? The door was locked, and the window bolted. Precisement, Poirot said. That is the question. The how. It is as important as the who. He straightened, his gaze drifting to the conservatory's glass walls, where Miss Florence Devereux could be seen tending to her beloved orchids. Mademoiselle Devereux, she is a woman of observation. I wonder what she has seen. Inside the conservatory, Miss Devereux looked up as Poirot and Hastings entered. Her notebook was open on a wooden table, beside a tray of delicate orchids. "Mr. Poirot," she said, her tone cool, "have you come to admire the cypripedium, or to pry further into my affairs?" Poirot bowed. "Both, mademoiselle. If you will permit, your notebook. It fascinates me. May I see it now?" Her eyes narrowed, but she handed it over with a reluctant sigh. Poirot flipped through the pages, his fingers pausing on a sketch of an orchid labeled Cypripedium reginae. Beside it was a notation in tiny, precise script, 9:05 p.m. "Shadow by the hedge." Poirot's eyebrows rose. "A shadow, mademoiselle? At 9:05, you saw something outside?" Miss Devereux's lips pursed. "I saw movement. Nothing more. A trick of the light. Perhaps. I was focused on my work. And yet," Poirot said, "you noted the time. Most precise." He closed the notebook and returned it. "Merci, mademoiselle. You have given me much to consider." As they left the conservatory, Hastings whispered, "A shadow at 9:05. That's just before the scream. Could it be the killer?" "Perhaps," Poirot said, "or perhaps another red herring. We must test the alibis, Hastings. The scream at 9:10. It is the pivot of this mystery. Let us return to the drawing room and stir the waters." Back in the drawing room, Grayson had gathered the guests, his focus still on Baxter. "Mr. Baxter," he said, his voice sharp, "you say you were in this room at 9 o'clock, but you've no one to confirm it. And those debts of Sir Reginald's, did you pressure him to settle them?" Baxter's face flushed, his spectacles slipping again. I never pressured him. He trusted me. I was here, with the others, when he went to the cellar. Ask anyone." Clara spoke up, her voice trembling. "He was here, Inspector. I saw him sitting by the fire before Uncle left." Mrs. Carver nodded, though her eyes were evasive. "Yes, I believe so. It's all such a blur." Dr. Langley remained silent, his gaze fixed on the floor, while Miss Devereux's pen scratched faintly, her expression unreadable. Grayson, undeterred, pressed Baxter further, but the solicitor's denials grew more frantic, his voice rising to a pitch that drew uneasy glances from the others. Poirot stepped forward, his presence calming the room. "Monsieur Baxter, you are distressed, and that is natural. But let us consider another matter. The dagger, its origin is Persian. Did Sir Reginald ever speak of travels to the East, or of acquiring such an artifact?" Baxter shook his head vigorously. "No, never. He collected paintings, not weapons. I'd have known if he had such a thing." Poirot's eyes flicked to the others, catching Mrs. Carver's sudden stillness. "And you, Madame Carver, you have traveled widely. Perhaps you have seen such a dagger before." Her laugh was sharp, almost shrill. "Me? Oh, Mr. Poirot, I've seen many trinkets in my travels, but nothing like that. It's quite barbaric, isn't it?" Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Barbaric," perhaps, but also deliberate. The choice of weapon. It speaks to the killer's mind. He turned to the group. Ms. The facts are before us, but they are clouded by misdirection. A footprint, a shadow, a bottle out of place. These are not accidents. Someone here is playing a clever game, but Poirot, he does not lose at games of the mind. As the guests dispersed, Hastings pulled Poirot aside. "You're letting Baxter off too easily, aren't you?" "Grayson's right, he is the obvious suspect." Poirot chuckled softly. "The obvious, Hastings, is rarely the truth. Baxter, he is nervous, yes, but his fear is not that of a murderer. It is the fear of a man who knows too much or too little. We must look deeper, to the one who hides in plain sight." The day waned, and the manor seemed to close in on itself, each guest retreating to their thoughts. Hastings watched Poirot, who stood by the window, his eyes distant, but alert. The word, Hastings, Poirot murmured. "It is close. One word, and the puzzle will begin to unravel." Chapter 6. A clue in detail. Late afternoon light filtered through the heavy drapes of Crestwood Manor, casting a muted glow over the drawing room where the guests remained, their nerves frayed by the weight of suspicion. Hercule Poirot, ever the picture of composure, stood by the fireplace, his small hands clasped behind his back, his eyes scanning the room with the precision of a watchmaker. Captain Arthur Hastings, seated nearby, noted the subtle tension in the air. Clara's clenched hands, Mrs. Carver's restless pacing, Dr. Langley's too calm demeanor, Mr. Baxter's twitching fingers, and Miss Devereux's relentless scribbling in her notebook. Inspector Grayson, still convinced of Baxter's guilt, hovered near the door, his impatience palpable. Poirot's attention, however, was not on the guests but on a small detail that had nagged at him since his second visit to the cellar. "Hastings," he said softly, drawing his friend aside, "there is something in this case that does not fit. The bottle of Chateau Lafite, turned upside down. It is not merely carelessness. It is a signal, a message left for us to find." Hastings frowned, his practical mind struggling to keep pace. A message? But who would leave a bottle upside down in a cellar? And why? Poirot's eyes gleamed. "That, mon ami, is the question. The cellar. It is a place of secrets, and this bottle it speaks. Come, we must examine it again." They descended to the cellar, accompanied by a reluctant Grayson. The air was cool and damp, the stone walls echoing their footsteps. Sir Reginald's body had been removed by the coroner, but the scene remained untouched. The dagger now in police custody. Poirot moved to the wine rack, his fingers tracing the outline of the misplaced bottle. "See here, Hastings," he said, pointing to a faint smudge on the bottle's label. "This is not dust. It is wax, candle wax, to be precise. And yet, there was no candle in the cellar last night." Grayson squinted at the bottle. "Wax could have dripped from somewhere else, surely." "None," Poirot said firmly. "The wax is fresh, its edges sharp. It fell here recently, perhaps last night. And see, the bottle's position upside down, yet perfectly aligned with the others. This is no accident. Someone placed it so, with intention." Hastings rubbed his chin. "But what does it mean, Poirot? A signal to someone? Or a mistake by the killer?" Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "A mistake, Hastings? None. The killer is too clever for that. This is a clue, deliberate or not. and it points to the truth. We must consider the timing 9 o'clock, when Sir Reginald left for the cellar, and 10 minutes passed when the scream was heard. Returning to the drawing room, Poirot gathered the guests, his presence commanding their attention. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, his voice steady, "a crime has been committed and the clues, they are subtle, but clear. I ask you now to think carefully. Did anyone see a candle last night? Perhaps in the hall or near the cellar door?" The guests exchanged uneasy glances. Clara shook her head, her voice soft. "No, Mr. Poirot. The manor is well lit with electric lamps. We've no need for candles." Mrs. Carver, her diamond earrings catching the light, laughed nervously. "A candle? How quaint. No, I saw nothing like that." Dr. Langley's brow furrowed. "I don't recall a candle, but I wasn't looking for one. I was in the drawing room, as I said." Mr. Baxter, his spectacles slipping, stammered, "And no candles. I'd have noticed. I was here." Miss Devereux's pen paused, her eyes sharp. "A candle, Mr. Poirot? That's an odd question. Why do you ask?" Poirot's gaze lingered on her. "Because, mademoiselle, the smallest detail may hold the key, and you, with your notebook, you notice such details, do you not?" Her lips thinned, but she said nothing, her pen resuming its scratch. Poirot turned to the group. "There is another matter. The scream at 10 minutes past 9, it was Sir Reginald's. You all agree. Tell me, how well lit was the hall when you ran to the cellar?" Clara frowned. "It was bright, as always. The chandeliers were on, and the hall lamps too." "Precisement," Poirot said. "And yet, a shadow was seen at 5 minutes past 9 by Mademoiselle Devereux. A shadow requires light and perhaps a source other than the electric lamps." The room fell silent, the guests' faces a mixture of confusion and unease. Grayson, growing impatient, spoke up. "This is all very well, Mr. Poirot, but what about Baxter? His story's shaky, and he had access to Sir Reginald's finances. I say we bring him in for questioning." Poirot raised a hand. "Monsieur Baxter is nervous, but nerves do not make a murderer. The wax, the bottle, the shadow, these are the threads we must follow. And there is one more thread, the word, a single word, spoken or unspoken, that will unravel this mystery." As the guests dispersed, Hastings pulled Poirot aside. "You're sure about Baxter? Grayson's convinced he's our man." Poirot chuckled softly. "Grayson sees what is loud, mon ami. The nervous man, the obvious motive. But Poirot, he looks for the quiet things, the wax, the bottle, the shadow in the garden. These are not accidents. They are the work of a mind that plans, that deceives." They returned to the cellar once more, Poirot's eyes drawn to the spot where the footprint had been found. He crouched, examining the stone floor. The footprint. Hastings, it is too perfect, too clear in the dust, almost as if it were meant to be seen. "You think it's a plant?" Hastings asked, his eyes widening. "Perhaps," Poirot said. "Or perhaps it is the truth, dressed as a lie. We must test the alibis again, but with care. The killer, they are watching us, waiting for a misstep." As they ascended the stairs, Poirot paused, his gaze distant. The word, Hastings. It is close now. A word that was said or not said at the moment of the crime. We must listen for it. The manor seemed to hold its breath, the silence broken only by the distant ticking of the grandfather clock. Hastings felt a chill, not from the air, but from the certainty that the killer was among them, their every move calculated, their secrets buried just beneath the surface. Chapter 7. More lies surfaced. Evening shadows lengthened across Crestwood Manor, draping the drawing room in a somber twilight that mirrored the growing unease among its occupants. The guests, still confined by Inspector Grayson's orders, sat in a strained tableau, their earlier civility eroded by the relentless pressure of suspicion. Hercule Poirot, undeterred by the heavy atmosphere, moved among them with the quiet confidence of a conductor orchestrating a symphony. Captain Arthur Hastings, ever his loyal observer, noted the subtle shifts in the guest's behavior. Clara's haunted eyes, Mrs. Carver's forced gaiety, Dr. Langley's guarded silence, Mr. Baxter's nervous fidgeting, and Miss Devereux's unrelenting focus on her notebook. Inspector Grayson, still fixated on Mr. Baxter, hovered nearby, his notebook filled with accusatory scribbles. But Poirot, as Hastings knew, was chasing a deeper truth, one hidden in the nuances of human behavior. As the guests picked at their meal, Poirot addressed them, his voice cutting through the clink of cutlery. Mesdames et messieurs, the puzzle of Sir Reginald's death grows clearer, yet more complex. The facts, they are like threads in a tapestry, each must be examined, no matter how small. I ask you now, did anyone speak to Sir Reginald privately yesterday, before he went to the cellar? A heavy silence followed. Clara's fork paused midair, her lips parting as if to speak, but she hesitated. Mrs. Carver's smile faltered, her eyes darting to Dr. Langley, who stared fixedly at his plate. Mr. Baxter adjusted his spectacles, his hands trembling. Miss Devereux's pen, ever active, slowed to a stop finally. Clara spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I spoke to Uncle earlier in the day, in his study. He was upset, talking about his will. He said he was making changes, but he wouldn't tell me what. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Changes to the will, mademoiselle. This is most interesting. Did he mention anyone else? Clara shook her head. No, he was vague. He just said he wanted to set things right. I thought he meant his debts. Poirot turned to Mr. Baxter. Monsieur Baxter, as Sir Reginald's solicitor, you would know of such changes. Baxter's face flushed. I hadn't seen the new will yet. He mentioned wanting to revise it, but we hadn't finalized anything. I swear, I didn't know. Grayson leaned forward, his voice sharp. Didn't know, or didn't want to say, if Sir Reginald was cutting you out, or someone else. That's motive enough for murder. Baxter's voice rose, frantic. I didn't kill him. I was in the drawing room. I tell you. Poirot raised a hand, silencing the outburst. Calm, monsieur. The truth. It will not be found in shouting. Madame Carver, perhaps you can shed light. Sir Reginald. He was a charming host. Did he confide in you? Mrs. Carver's laugh was brittle. Confide? Oh, Mr. Poirot, we barely spoke. He was polite, but distant. I'm just a guest. After all, her fingers toyed with her diamond earrings. A nervous tick. Poirot noted with interest. Dr. Langley cleared his throat. If I may, Mr. Poirot, I saw Sir Reginald in the hall, around 8:30. He seemed agitated, muttering about someone not keeping their word. I didn't catch a name. Poirot's eyebrows rose. Not keeping their word. This is significant, Doctor. And you, Mademoiselle Devereux, your notebook, it records the orchids, but also, perhaps, the secrets of this house. Miss Devereux's eyes narrowed. I record what I see, Mr. Poirot. Sir Reginald was a private man. If he had secrets, they weren't shared with me. Poirot smiled faintly. And yet, you saw a shadow at 9:05, a shadow that may hold the key to this crime. The room grew tense, the guest's eyes flickering with unease. Hastings, watching closely, noticed Mrs. Carver's hand freeze on her wine glass, and Dr. Langley's jaw tighten. Something was shifting, a crack in the surface of their carefully maintained lies. Later, in the library, Poirot and Hastings reviewed the day's findings. The will, Hastings, Poirot said, his voice low. It is a motive most classic. If Sir Reginald was changing it, someone stood to lose or gain greatly. And this talk of broken promises, it suggests a betrayal. Hastings nodded. Baxter's the obvious one with his access to the finances. But what about Mrs. Carver? She's too nervous. Poirot. And that shadow Miss Devereux saw, could it be connected to the footprint? Perhaps, Poirot said, his fingers steepled. But there is another clue, one we have overlooked. The scream Clara insists it was Sir Reginald's, yet no one else is certain. And the wax on the bottle, it suggests a light, a hidden movement in the dark. We must reconstruct the moments before the crime. Poirot rose, pacing the room. Let us consider the timeline. At 9 o'clock, Sir Reginald leaves for the cellar. At 5 minutes past, Mademoiselle Devereux sees a shadow. At 10 minutes past, the scream is heard. The cellar door is locked, the key in his pocket, the window bolted. Yet someone was there. Hastings. Someone who left a footprint, a bottle, and a trace of wax. Hastings frowned. But how? The door was locked from the inside. Unless, could there be a secret passage? Poirot's eyes twinkled. A passage? Non, mon ami. That is too fanciful. The truth is simpler, yet more cunning. The killer, they used the tools and the manner. The moment, the deception, and the word. Hastings, the word is closer now. It is a word spoken or not spoken at the critical moment. As night fell, Poirot requested a final inspection of the cellar. With Grayson and Hastings in tow, he examined the wine rack again, his fingers tracing the shelves. See here, he said, pointing to a faint scratch on the wooden frame, near the misplaced bottle. This is recent, made by something sharp, perhaps the dagger itself. Grayson grunted. A scratch? That could be anything, Mr. Poirot. None, Poirot said. It is a sign of haste, of carelessness. The killer, they were not as perfect as they thought. He turned to Hastings. Tomorrow, we will press harder. The lies, they are surfacing, and with them, the truth. As they left the cellar, Hastings felt a chill, not from the cold stone, but from the certainty that the killer was watching, their secrets teetering on the edge of exposure. Poirot, however, seemed almost serene, his mind a step ahead, chasing the elusive word that would unlock the mystery. Chapter 8. The emotional turning point. Air in Crestwood Manor had grown oppressive by the second evening. the weight of Sir Reginald Ashburn's murder pressing down on the guests. Like a storm about to break, the drawing-room, once a haven of civility, now felt like a cage, its heavy drapes and flickering lamps amplifying the tension among the occupants. Hercule Poirot, ever the calm center of the storm, sat in a high-backed chair, his eyes scanning the group with a quiet intensity that made even the innocent squirm. Captain Arthur Hastings, standing by the window, felt the strain of the past 2 days, his soldier's instincts warring with the baffling complexity of the case. Inspector Grayson, still doggedly pursuing Mr. Baxter as the prime suspect, had spent the afternoon interrogating the solicitor further, but his efforts yielded only more denials and nervous stammering. Poirot, however, had shifted his focus, his mind circling the clues that refused to align: the candle wax, the misplaced bottle, the faint footprint, and the mysterious shadow seen by Miss Devereux. Hastings knew his friend was close to a breakthrough, but Poirot's cryptic references to the word left him grasping at shadows. As the guests gathered for a tense supper, the conversation was stilted, punctuated by long silences. Clara Ashburn, her face pale and drawn, barely touched her food, her eyes darting to the empty chair where her uncle had sat. Mrs. Evelyn Carver, her usual glamour dimmed, sipped her wine with unsteady hands. Dr. Maurice Langley maintained his clinical calm, though his fingers drummed faintly on the table. Mr. Baxter, under Grayson's relentless scrutiny, seemed on the verge of collapse, his spectacles fogging with nervous sweat. Miss Florence Devereux, as always, scribbled in her notebook, her expression unreadable. Poirot, sensing the moment was ripe, rose from his seat, his small frame commanding the room. "Mesdames et messieurs," he said, his voice clear and deliberate, "the time for half-truths is over. The death of Sir Reginald was no accident, no crime of passion. It was planned, precise and personal, and someone in this room holds the key to its unraveling. I ask you now, not as a detective, but as one who seeks justice. What did Sir Reginald say to you in his final hours that he should not have said?" The question hung in the air, sharp and accusing. The guests froze, their eyes flickering with unease. Clara's breath caught, and she dropped her fork. The clatter loud in the silence. "Mr. Poirot," she whispered, "I've told you everything." He spoke of his will, of setting things right. I don't know what he meant. Poirot's gaze softened, but only slightly. "Mademoiselle Clara, you loved your uncle. Yet there is something you hold back. A word, a glance, a secret he shared. Speak now, or the truth will be more painful when it emerges." Clara's eyes filled with tears, and she rose, her hands trembling. "I can't bear this," she cried. He told me he was afraid. He said someone was threatening him, someone close. He wouldn't say who, but he was terrified. I thought he was exaggerating, but now..." Her voice broke and she sank back into her chair, sobbing. The room erupted in murmurs. Mrs. Carver's wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. Dr. Langley's calm cracked, his face paling. Baxter gasped, his spectacles falling to the table. Miss Devereux's pen stopped, her eyes narrowing as she watched the chaos unfold. Poirot raised a hand, restoring order. "Mercy, Mademoiselle Clara. Your courage has brought us closer to the truth. A threat. You say a threat from someone close. This is no small thing. He turned to the others, his voice hardening. Who among you made Sir Reginald fear for his life? Speak, or I shall find the answer myself. Double quotes Mrs. Carver, her composure shattered, stood abruptly. This is absurd. I barely knew the man. Why would I threaten him? Her voice was shrill, her hands clutching her shawl as if it could shield her from Poirot's scrutiny. Dr. Langley spoke, his tone measured but strained. Mr. Poirot, you're pushing too hard. Sir Reginald was under strain debts, business troubles. He might have imagined threats where there were none. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Imagined, doctor, none. Sir Reginald was a man of reason. If he spoke of fear, it was real. And you, Monsieur Baxter, did he confide in you about these threats? Baxter shook his head frantically. No, no. He mentioned debts, yes, but nothing about threats. I swear it. Miss Devereux, silent until now, closed her notebook with a snap. Mr. Poirot, she said, her voice cool, you speak of a word, a key. If Sir Reginald was threatened, perhaps the word is fear itself. It's written on all our faces now. Poirot's smile was faint, but approving. Astute, mademoiselle. But fear is not the word I seek. It is a word more precise, more personal. And it was spoken or not spoken at the moment of the crime. The emotional weight of Clara's outburst lingered, cracking the veneer of the guest's defenses. Hastings, watching closely, saw the shift Clara's confession had shaken them, exposing raw nerves and hidden truths. He leaned toward Poirot, whispering, "She's broken the dam, hasn't she? They're all rattled now." "Oui, mon ami," Poirot murmured. "The truth. It begins to flow. But we must be careful. The killer. They are watching, and they will act to protect their secret." Later, in the library, Poirot and Hastings reviewed the evening's revelations. Clara's admission. Poirot said, "It is a turning point. Sir Reginald feared someone close, a friend, a confidant, perhaps even family. This narrows our focus. The wax, the bottle, the footprint, they point to a plan. But the threat, it points to a motive." Hastings frowned. "But who? Baxter's a wreck, but Clara's story clears him of direct threats. Mrs. Carver's hiding something, I'd wager, and Langley's to calm for my liking. And Miss Devereux, her notebook's a mystery in itself." Poirot nodded, his fingers steepled. "Each has a secret, Hastings. But the killer, they have woven their lies into the fabric of this house. The word, it is tied to the scream, to the moment of death. We must listen, not just to what was said, but to what was not." As they prepared to retire for the night, Poirot paused by the cellar door, his eyes lingering on the lock. "Tomorrow, Hastings, we set a trap. The killer, they are clever, but they cannot outrun the little gray cells. The word is near, and with it, the truth." The manor settled into an uneasy silence, the guests retreating to their rooms, each carrying the weight of Clara's revelation. Hastings felt the tension coiling tighter, the sense that the mystery was teetering on the edge of resolution or disaster. Chapter 9. The trap. Third morning at Crestwood Manor dawned with a deceptive calm. The Devon hills bathed in a soft mist that clung to the estate's ivy-clad walls. Inside, the tension among the guests had reached a fever pitch. Their strained, civility fraying under the weight of suspicion and Hercule Poirot's relentless probing. The drawing room, now a familiar stage for the unfolding drama, buzzed with nervous energy as the guests gathered, their faces etched with exhaustion and unease. Captain Arthur Hastings stood by the fireplace, his notebook filled with observations, his faith in Poirot's method unwavering despite the complexity of the case. Poirot, immaculate in a charcoal suit, his mustache a perfect arc, entered the room with a purposeful air. Inspector Grayson, still clinging to his theory about Mr. Baxter, followed closely, his expression a mix of frustration and reluctant deference. Poirot's discoveries: the candle wax, the misplaced bottle, the footprint, the shadow, and Clara's revelation about Sir Reginald's fear had shifted the investigation, and Hastings sensed that his friend was ready to tighten the noose. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice cutting through the murmur of the room, "we stand at a crossroads. The death of Sir Reginald Ashburn was no random act. It was a crime of precision, of motive, of betrayal. Tonight, we will uncover the truth. For the killer, they are among us, and they cannot hide forever from Hercule Poirot." The guests stiffened, their eyes darting to one another. Clara Ashburn clutched her handkerchief, her face pale. Mrs. Evelyn Carver's smile was forced, her fingers twisting her shawl. Dr. Maurice Langley's calm faltered, his jaw tightening. Mr. Baxter's spectacles slipped, his hands trembling as he adjusted them. Miss Florence Devereux, her notebook closed for once, met Poirot's gaze with a cool defiance. Poirot continued, his tone deliberate. "The clues, they are clear. A footprint too perfect, a bottle misplaced, a trace of wax, a shadow at 9:05, and a scream that you, Mademoiselle Clara, insist was your uncle's. But what if it was not? What if the scream was a deception meant to draw us to the cellar?" Clara gasped, her eyes wide. "Mr. Poirot, I know what I heard. It was Uncle's voice." Poirot raised a hand, his expression unreadable. "Patience, mademoiselle. The truth. It is like a mosaic, each piece must fit. Tonight, I propose a test, a reconstruction of the moments before the crime. We will return to the cellar, all of us, at precisely 9 o'clock. You will take your places as you were last night, and we will see what the shadows reveal." Grayson frowned, his voice gruff. "A reconstruction. What's that going to prove, Mr. Poirot? We know Baxter was in on the finances. Let's focus on him." Poirot's eyes twinkled. "Monsieur l'Inspecteur, you see the tree, but not the forest. The trap. It is not for Monsieur Baxter alone, but for the one who hides behind the lies. Come, let us prepare." As the day wore on, the guests grew increasingly agitated, their movements restless, their conversations clipped. Hastings watched them closely, noting Mrs. Carver's frequent glances toward the conservatory, Dr. Langley's sudden interest in a medical journal, and Miss Devereux's brief absence to the garden, her notebook tucked under her arm. Baxter, under Grayson's scrutiny, seemed on the verge of collapse, his denials growing weaker. At 9 o'clock, the group assembled in the drawing room, the clock's chime echoing like a warning. Poirot directed each guest to their position. From the night of the murder, Clara by the tea tray, Mrs. Carver near the window, Dr. Langley by the fireplace, Baxter in an armchair, and Miss Devereux at a small table with her notebook. Poirot himself stood by the door, his eyes sharp, while Hastings and Grayson waited in the hall. "Now," Poirot said, "we begin at 9 o'clock." Sir Reginald left for the cellar. "Monsieur Baxter, you remain here. Madame Carver, you are at the window. Mademoiselle Devereux, you write. Doctor, you are by the fire. Mademoiselle Clara, you pour the tea. We wait." The minutes ticked by, the silence oppressive. At 5 minutes past 9, Poirot signaled to Hastings. "Mon ami, go to the conservatory. Look for the shadow, as Mademoiselle Devereux saw it." Hastings hurried to the conservatory, his heart pounding. The glass walls reflected the dim light of the garden lamps, and there, by the hedge, he saw it a fleeting shadow, moving swiftly. He rushed back, breathless. "Poirot, there's someone outside, a figure, near the hedge." Poirot's eyes gleamed. Bon. And now, the scream. He clapped his hands sharply, mimicking the sound that had shattered the night. The guests flinched, their faces a mix of fear and confusion. Mrs. Carver gasped, her hand flying to her throat. Dr. Langley's journal slipped to the floor. Baxter's spectacles fell and Clara's teacup rattled. Poirot moved swiftly to the cellar door, the group following. Quickly, to the cellar. As you did before, they descended the narrow stairs, the air cool and musty. Poirot paused at the wine rack, his fingers brushing the spot where the bottle had been misplaced. "See here," he said, pointing to a faint smudge of wax, now joined by a fresh drop. "The candle. It was used again tonight. Someone has been here." Mrs. Carver's voice trembled. "But how? The door was locked last night." Poirot's smile was grim. "The door, madam, is not the only way. The window, it is bolted, but bolts can be undone. And the footprint it was left to mislead. The killer, they are clever, but they have made a mistake tonight." Grayson, red-faced, turned to Baxter. You slipped out, didn't you? While we were distracted." Baxter shook his head frantically. "No, I was in the drawing room. I swear it." Poirot's voice cut through the chaos. "Enough. The trap, it has worked. The shadow, the wax, the scream, they point to one truth. The killer, they are here, and they have betrayed themselves. But I will not name them yet. The one word that unlocks this crime is still missing. Tomorrow we will have it." The guests stood frozen, their eyes wide with fear. Hastings, his heart racing, whispered, "Poirot, you know who it is, don't you?" Poirot's eyes met his, a spark of certainty in their depths. "Oui, mon ami, the little gray cells. They are aligning. The trap has shown us the killer's hand. Tomorrow we will close the net." As the group dispersed, the manor seemed to pulse with secrets, the walls themselves whispering of the truth that lay just out of reach. Hastings felt the weight of the moment, the certainty that Poirot's trap had rattled the killer, pushing them closer to a fatal mistake. Chapter 10. The reveal. Fourth morning at Crestwood Manor broke with a heavy stillness, the mist outside giving way to a pale, watery sunlight that did little to lift the oppressive mood within. The drawing room, now a battleground of nerves and secrets, was filled with the guests, their faces drawn from sleepless nights and the weight of Hercule Poirot's relentless pursuit of the truth. Captain Arthur Hastings stood by the window, his notebook clutched tightly, his heart pounding with anticipation. Last night's trap had shaken the group, and he sensed that Poirot was ready to unveil the solution to the mystery that had gripped them all. Hercule Poirot entered the room at precisely 10 o'clock, his small frame radiating an air of quiet triumph. His suit was immaculate, his mustache perfectly groomed, and his green eyes sparkled with the certainty of a man who had solved the unsolvable. Inspector Grayson, looking weary but attentive, stood by the door, his earlier fixation on Mr. Baxter tempered by Poirot's methodical dismantling of the obvious. The guests Clara Ashburn, Mrs. Evelyn Carver, Dr. Maurice Langley, Mr. Leonard Baxter, and Miss Florence Devereux sat in a tense semicircle, their eyes fixed on Poirot, each betraying a mix of fear, curiosity, and dread. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice clear and commanding, "the time has come to lay bare the truth of Sir Reginald Ashburn's murder. It was a crime of cunning, of deception, of a mind that thought itself cleverer than Hercule Poirot. But no one, no matter how clever, can hide from the little gray cells when they are set to work. I have found the one word that unlocks this mystery, and that word is time." The guests stirred, exchanging uneasy glances. Clara's handkerchief twisted in her hands. Mrs. Carver's smile froze, and Baxter's spectacles slipped down his nose. Poirot raised a hand. "Silencing the room, let us reconstruct the crime, step by step, and see how the pieces fit. The facts, they are simple, yet profound." Poirot paced slowly, his hands clasped behind his back. "At 9 o'clock, sir, Reginald leaves the drawing-room to fetch a bottle of port from the cellar. At 5 minutes past 9, Mademoiselle Devereux sees a shadow by the hedge. At 10 minutes past 9, a scream is heard, and you all rush to the cellar, finding Sir Reginald dead, stabbed through the heart with a Persian dagger. The door is locked, the key in his pocket, the window bolted. An impossible crime, but not impossible, merely a matter of timing." He turned to the group, his eyes piercing. "The scream, it was not Sir Reginald's. It was a deception, a crime meant to draw you to the cellar at the precise moment. The killer. They planned this carefully, using the locked door to create the illusion of an impossible murder. But how was it done?" Poirot paused, letting the tension build. "The footprint in the cellar, so perfect in the dust, it was placed there, not by accident, but to mislead. The bottle of Chateau Lafite, turned upside down, marked with candle wax, it was a signal, not to us, but to the killer's accomplice. And the shadow, seen by Mademoiselle Devereux, it was no trick of the light. It was the killer, moving outside, preparing the stage." Clara's voice trembled. "But Mr. Poirot, the door was locked. How could anyone get in or out?" Poirot's smile was grim. "The door, mademoiselle, was locked, but the window was not. The bolt, it is old, easily manipulated from the outside with a thin tool, a knitting needle, perhaps, or a wire. The killer entered through the window, stabbed Sir Reginald, and left the same way, bolting it behind them. The key in his pocket. It was placed there after death, to create the illusion of a locked room." Grayson's jaw dropped. "The window. But it was bolted when we arrived." "Precisement," Poirot said. "The killer. They are clever. They used a tool to bolt the window from outside, then discarded it in the garden. The shadow, mademoiselle. Devereux saw it was the killer, moving to the window at 5 minutes past 9, before the scream." Poirot turned to Mrs. Carver, whose face had gone ashen. "Madame Carver, You were at the window in the drawing room. You claimed to see nothing, but I think you saw the shadow, and you knew what it meant." Mrs. Carver's laugh was shrill. "I saw nothing, Mr. Poirot. I was just getting air." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "None, madam, you were not getting air. You were watching, waiting. You have traveled to the east, have you not? To Persia, perhaps, where such daggers are common. And your earrings, those diamonds, they are new. Are they not a gift, perhaps, from someone who needed your silence?" Mrs. Carver gasped, her hands flying to her ears. "How dare you? I bought these myself." Poirot turned to Dr. Langley. "And you, doctor, you spoke of a disagreement with Sir Reginald, a medical matter. But it was more, was it not? A matter of money, of a debt unpaid. You mentioned a man named Hargreaves, a business rival. But Hargreaves does not exist, does he? It was you, doctor, who pressed Sir Reginald, who threatened him." Langley's comb cracked, his voice rising. "That's absurd. I had no reason to kill him." Poirot's gaze shifted to Miss Devereux. "And you, mademoiselle, your notebook, it is not just for orchids. You saw the shadow. You noted the time, because you suspected. You knew Sir Reginald was changing his will. And you knew who stood to lose." Miss Devereux's lips thinned, but she remained silent. Her eyes locked on Poirot. Finally, Poirot turned to Clara. "Mademoiselle Clara, you loved your uncle, but you feared him too. He was changing his will, cutting you out, perhaps, because of your engagement to a man he disapproved of. You spoke of his fear, but it was your fear that drove you." Clara's eyes widened, tears streaming down her face. "No, I didn't kill him. I loved him." Poirot's voice softened, but his words were relentless. "The word, Ms. Amos, is time. The killer manipulated time, making us believe the murder happened at 10 minutes past 9, when in truth, it happened earlier. At 5 minutes past, when the shadow was seen, the scream was a trick, a recording, perhaps, or a mimicry by an accomplice. And the killer is you, Madame Carver." The room gasped. Mrs. Carver stood, her face contorted with rage. "This is outrageous. You have no proof." Poirot's smile was cold. "The proof, madam, is in the wax. The candle you used to light your way in the cellar left its mark on the bottle. Your earrings, a gift from Dr. Langley, who was your accomplice, paid to ensure your silence about his own threats to Sir Reginald. You entered through the window, stabbed him, and left the footprint to mislead. The bottle, you turned it upside down as a signal to Langley, who mimicked the scream to draw us to the cellar." Dr. Langley leapt to his feet. "This is preposterous. I was in the drawing room, non," Poirot said. "You were in the hall, ready to cry out, to create the illusion of the locked room. The scratch on the wine racket was made by the dagger, dropped in haste as you and Madame Carver completed your plan." Mrs. Carver collapsed, sobbing, as Grayson moved to restrain her. Langley's face crumpled, his defiance gone. "It was her idea," he muttered. "She wanted the money, the will. I only helped." Poirot turned to the others. "The motive was greed, the method deception. The word time revealed the truth, for the killer could not hide the minutes. That betrayed them." As Grayson led Mrs. Carver and Langley away, Hastings stared at Poirot, awestruck. "You did it, Poirot. The word time. It was all about the timing. Poirot nodded, his eyes distant. We, mon ami, the little grey cells, they see what others miss. Now, let us leave this place of shadows. Chapter 11. The reflection. The aftermath of Poirot's dramatic revelation hung over Crestwood Manor. Like a lifting fog, the oppressive tension of the past days giving way to a somber clarity. The drawing room, once a stage for secrets and suspicion, now felt hollow, its grandeur diminished by the grim truth of Sir Reginald Ashburn's murder. The remaining guests, Clara Ashburn, Mr. Leonard Baxter, and Miss Florence Devereux, sat in stunned silence, their faces a mixture of relief and lingering shock. Mrs. Evelyn Carver and Dr. Maurice Langley had been taken into custody by Inspector Grayson, their confessions echoing in the minds of those left behind. Captain Arthur Hastings, standing by the window, gazed out at the rose garden, his thoughts heavy with the weight of the case's resolution. Hercule Poirot, his work complete, stood by the fireplace, his small frame radiating a quiet satisfaction. His suit was as pristine as ever, his mustache a perfect curve, but his green eyes held a reflective depth, as if he were already turning the case over in his mind, seeking the lessons it offered. Inspector Grayson, now deferential to Poirot's genius, approached him with a rare smile. "Mr. Poirot, I'll admit I had my doubts, but you've done it. A locked room, a scream, and all those tricks, yet you saw through it all." Poirot bowed slightly, his expression modest, but with a hint of pride. "Merci, Monsieur l'Inspecteur. The little grey cells, they do not fail when order and method are applied. But the truth, it is not always a victory. It is a mirror, reflecting the flaws of the human heart." Clara, her eyes still red from tears, rose and approached Poirot. "Mr. Poirot, I can't thank you enough. I was so afraid it was someone I loved, someone I trusted. But how did you know? The word, time, how did it lead you to them?" Poirot's gaze softened. "Mademoiselle Clara, the word, time was the key because it was the killer's mistake. They sought to control the moment of the crime, to make it appear impossible. The scream at 9:10 was meant to fix the time of death, but the shadow at 5 minutes past, seen by Mademoiselle Devereux, betrayed them. The candle wax, the bottle, the footprint, these were not accidents, but signs of a plan too clever for its own good. Madame Carver and Dr. Langley, they were driven by greed, by fear of losing what they thought was theirs. The will, the debts, the threats, they wove a web, but they could not escape it." Miss Devereux, her notebook now resting on the table, spoke up, her voice steady. "I suspected something, Mr. Poirot. That shadow, I knew it wasn't right, but I never imagined." "Not them." Poirot nodded. "Your observations, mademoiselle, were invaluable. Your notebook, it sees what others miss. But even you did not see the full picture, for the human heart is a labyrinth." Mr. Baxter, his nerves somewhat steadied, adjusted his spectacles. "I thought it was me you suspected, Mr. Poirot. I knew about the debts, but I never wanted him dead. He was my friend." Poirot's smile was gentle. "Monsieur Baxter, your fear was your innocence. The guilty, they hide behind confidence, not nerves. You were a distraction, a red herring. As the English say." Hastings, unable to contain his curiosity, stepped forward. Poirot. The window. How did you know it was the key? And the scream, how could Langley mimic it so perfectly? Poirot turned to his friend, his eyes twinkling. Mon ami, the window was the only logical entry. The door was locked, the key in Sir Reginald's pocket a perfect misdirection. But the window, with its old bolt, could be manipulated with a simple tool discarded in the garden. As for the scream, Dr. Langley was a man of precision, a physician who knew how to mimic pain. He stood in the hall, waiting for the signal the bottle turned upside down to cry out, drawing you all to the cellar. It was a performance, Hastings, but not flawless. Grayson shook his head, marveling. And the wax, that tiny drop on the bottle, a mistake, Poirot said. Madame Carver carried a candle to light her way in the dark cellar. She was careful, but not careful enough. The wax fell, marking her presence. The bottle, turned upside down, was her signal to Langley that the deed was done. They thought themselves clever, but the little gray cells, they see the smallest details. Clara wiped her eyes. Uncle was going to change his will. Did they know? Poirot nodded. Oui, mademoiselle. Madame Carver learned of it, perhaps through Dr. Langley, who had his own grievances with Sir Reginald. The will, it threatened their plans, her wealth, his debts. They acted to preserve their futures, but in doing so, they sealed their fate. The room fell silent, the weight of Poirot's words settling over them. Hastings, watching his friend, felt a familiar awe. You always say it's the little things, Poirot. The wax, the bottle, the timing. It's like you see the world differently. Poirot's smile was wistful. Not differently, mon ami, but clearly. The world, it is full of patterns, of truths hidden in plain sight. The little gray cells, they seek order where others seek chaos. But this case, it reminds us of the tragedy of greed, of trust betrayed. Sir Reginald, he was a man of honor, and his death, it was a wound to all who knew him. As the guests dispersed, Clara to mourn her uncle, Baxter to regain his composure, and Miss Devereux to her orchids, Poirot and Hastings prepared to leave. The manor, once a place of elegance, now felt like a mausoleum, its secrets laid bare. Outside, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the lawn. Poirot, Hastings said as they walked to their car, you mentioned a philosophy once, about justice and the human heart. What do you take from this case? Poirot paused, his eyes distant. That the heart, Hastings, it is both fragile and fierce. It loves, it trusts, but it can also betray. Justice, it is not vengeance, but a restoration of order. We have done that here, but the cost, it is always heavy. They drove away from Crestwood Manor, the estate fading into the twilight. Hastings glanced at Poirot, whose face was serene, his work complete. The mystery was solved. The word time, the key that had unlocked the truth. But the echoes of the case lingered, a reminder of the delicate balance between order and chaos. Chapter 12. The aftermath. Sun hung low over the Devon hills, as Crestwood Manor receded in the distance, its grand silhouette softened by the twilight. Inside the car, Hercule Poirot sat in thoughtful silence, his gloved hands resting on his lap, his eyes fixed on the winding road ahead. Captain Arthur Hastings, at the wheel, felt the weight of the case still lingering, like a shadow that refused to fade. The resolution of Sir Reginald Ashburn's murder had brought justice, but it had also left scars on those who remained: Clara, Baxter, Miss Devereux, and even the manor itself, now a monument to a tragedy born of greed. The guests had dispersed after Poirot's revelation, each grappling with the truth in their own way. Clara Ashburn, devastated by her uncle's death and the betrayal of those she had dined with, had retreated to her room, her grief tempered by a resolve to honor Sir Reginald's memory. Mr. Leonard Baxter, cleared of suspicion but shaken by his proximity to the crime, had left for London, muttering about needing a quieter life. Miss Florence Devereux, ever enigmatic, had returned to her orchids, her notebook now filled with more than botanical sketches, her sharp eyes perhaps recording the lessons of human nature. She had witnessed. Hastings glanced at Poirot, whose serene expression belied the intensity of the past days. "Poirot," he said, breaking the silence. "It's over, isn't it? Mrs. Carver and Dr. Langley are in custody. The truth is out. Yet they can't help feeling unsettled. The way they planned it, the coldness of it all, it's chilling." Poirot nodded, his voice soft but deliberate. "Oui, mon ami, the crime, it is solved. But the heart, it does not so easily heal. Madame Carver and Dr. Langley, they were consumed by their desires, her for wealth, him for revenge. They thought to outwit fate, but fate, it is not so easily mocked." Hastings frowned, his hands tightening on the wheel. That window trick, manipulating the bolt from outside, it was so simple, yet so clever. And the scream, Langley mimicking it to throw us off the timing. How did you see through it all, Poirot? The word time. It seems so obvious now, but it wasn't then. Poirot's eyes twinkled, a faint smile curving his lips. "The little grey cells, Hastings, they thrive on order. The scream, it was too perfect, too timed. The shadow at 5 minutes past 9, noted by Mademoiselle Devereux, did not align with the scream at 10 minutes past. This discrepancy, it was the crack in their plan, the wax, the bottle, the footprint. They were the flourishes of a performance meant to distract. But Poirot, he looks past the performance to the truth." They drove on, the countryside unfolding in gentle waves of green. Hastings' mind turned to Clara, her tearful confession, her fear that her uncle's death was tied to his will. "Do you think Clara will be all right, Poirot? She's lost so much." Poirot's expression softened. "Mademoiselle Clara is strong, Hastings. She loved her uncle, and that love will carry her through. The will, it will be found, and I suspect it will show Sir Reginald's heart, perhaps leaving much to her, despite his fears about her fiancé. But the manor, it will never be the same. It is a place now marked by betrayal." Hastings nodded, his thoughts drifting to Miss Devereux's notebook. And Miss Devereux, she knew more than she let on, didn't she? That shadow, her precise timing, it was almost as if she was helping you. Poirot chuckled softly. "Mademoiselle Devereux, she is a woman of observation, like Poirot. Her notebook, it is her little grey cells, recording the world in its details. She saw the shadow, she noted the time, but she did not understand its full meaning. Yet her precision, it was a gift to this case." As they approached the village of St. Mary Mead, where Poirot had been staying, Hastings felt a sense of closure, though tinged with melancholy. "What now, Poirot? Back to your cottage, a quiet life for a bit." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Quiet," Hastings, perhaps, for a moment, but the world, it is full of puzzles, and the little gray cells, they do not rest for long. There will be other mysteries, other truths to uncover. For now, I shall enjoy a cup of tisane and the order of my own thoughts. They pulled up to Poirot's cottage, a quaint stone building with a neatly trimmed garden. As Hastings helped carry Poirot's small suitcase, he couldn't resist one final question. "Poirot, you always talk about the human heart, its strengths and flaws. What did this case teach you?" Poirot paused at the door, his eyes distant. "That the heart, it is a paradox, Hastings. It seeks love, security, yet it can be swayed by greed, by fear. Madame Carver and Dr. Langley, they chose the path of betrayal, but they were not alone in their flaws. We all carry the potential for such choices. The task of Poirot, it is to shine a light on those choices, to restore the balance of justice." Hastings nodded, struck by the simplicity and profundity of Poirot's words. As they parted, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the village. Crestwood Manor was behind them, its secrets laid bare, but the echoes of the case the word time. The wax, the shadow would linger in Hastings' memory, a testament to the brilliance of Hercule Poirot and the enduring complexity of the human soul. Chapter 13. The final threads. The village of St. Mary Mead lay quiet under a starlit sky, its cottages nestled in the embrace of the Devon countryside. Hercule Poirot's small stone cottage, with its neatly trimmed garden, seemed a world away from the turmoil of Crestwood Manor. Yet, as Captain Arthur Hastings sat across from Poirot in the cozy sitting room, a cup of steaming tisane in hand, the echoes of the case lingered. The fire crackled softly, casting flickering shadows on the walls, and Hastings felt a need to unravel the final threads of the mystery that had consumed them. Poirot, settled in an armchair with his own cup of tisane, looked every inch the contented detective, his eyes half closed in contemplation. But Hastings knew better. Poirot's mind was never truly at rest, not even after a case as intricate as Sir Reginald Ashburn's murder had been solved. The revelation of Mrs. Evelyn Carver and Dr. Maurice Langley as the culprits, driven by greed and betrayal, had closed the investigation. But questions remained, nagging at Hastings' practical mind. "Poirot," Hastings began, setting his cup down, "it's all tied up neatly, I suppose, Mrs. Carver, Dr. Langley, the window, the screen. But there's something I can't shake. Miss Devereux's notebook, those notes about the shadow, the orchids. Was she really just an observer, or was there more to her role?" Poirot's eyes opened fully, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Mon ami, you are like a dog with a bone, always seeking the last morsel of truth. Mademoiselle Devereux, she is a fascinating figure, n'est-ce pas? Her notebook, it is her shield, her way of ordering the world. She saw the shadow. She noted the time 5 minutes past 9 because she is a woman of precision. But you are correct to wonder. She knew more than she said, though not enough to be complicit." Hastings leaned forward, intrigued. "You mean she suspected Mrs. Carver or Langley?" Poirot nodded, sipping his tisane. "Perhaps not by name, but she sensed the undercurrents. Her note about the shadow was no accident. It was a warning to herself, a record of something amiss. Had she understood its full meaning, she might have spoken sooner. But Mademoiselle Devereux, she prefers to observe, to let others act. In this, she is like Poirot, but without the courage to confront. Hastings frowned, his mind turning to another detail, and Clara her fear that her uncle was threatened. You cleared her of suspicion, but was there ever a chance she could have been involved? Poirot's expression grew somber. Mademoiselle Clara, she is a soul torn by love and loss. Her fear was genuine, her grief real. Sir Reginald's talk of changing his will, of threats from someone close, it weighed heavily on her. But her heart, it is not that of a killer. The little gray cells, they saw her innocence in her tears, her hesitation. She was a victim of this crime, not its architect. Hastings nodded, his thoughts drifting to the manor itself. Crestwood Manor, it's such a grand place. Yet it feels tainted now. Do you think Clara will stay there, or will she sell it? Poirot set his cup down, his fingers steepled. The manor, it is a place of beauty, but also of memory. For Mademoiselle Clara, it will always hold her uncle's shadow. I suspect she will leave, perhaps to start anew, to escape the ghosts of betrayal. The will, when it is found, will give her the means to choose her path. Sir Reginald, he was a man of honor, and I believe he intended to provide for her, despite his concerns. The fire popped, sending a spark into the air, and Hastings seized the moment to ask one final question. The dagger. Poirot, that Persian dagger. Mrs. Carver's travels to the east. The way it was used so deliberately, was it just a weapon, or did it mean something more? Poirot's eyes gleamed, a spark of delight at the question. The dagger, mon ami, it was a symbol as much as a weapon. Madame Carver, she chose it for its exotic allure, perhaps to cast suspicion elsewhere, to suggest an outsider, a stranger. But it was also her arrogance, her belief that such a flourish would obscure her guilt. The dagger, like the wax, like the bottle, was a mistake. It revealed her, for only someone with her travels, her connections, would possess such a thing. Hastings leaned back, marveling at Poirot's insight. You see everything, don't you? Every little detail, every slip. It's almost uncanny. Poirot chuckled, a warm, genuine sound. Not uncanny, Hastings methodical. The world, it is a puzzle, and the little gray cells, they find the pieces. The wax, the shadow, the scream, the word time, they were the threads. And Poirot, he weaves them into truth. But this case, it reminds us that truth, it comes at a cost. The human heart, it is fragile, and we must tread lightly. The clock on the mantel chimed midnight, its soft tolling marking the end of a long journey. Hastings rose, stretching his limbs. Well, Poirot, you've done it again, solved the impossible, brought justice to Crestwood Manor. What's next? Another mystery? Or will you actually take a holiday? Poirot's smile was enigmatic, his eyes twinkling in the firelight. A holiday, Hastings. Perhaps a short one with many cups of tisane. But the world, it is never quiet for long. There will be another puzzle, another truth to uncover, and Poirot, he will be ready. They parted with a handshake, Hastings stepping out into the cool night air, the stars bright above St. Mary Mead. Crestwood Manor was behind them, its secrets laid bare, its tragedy resolved. But as he walked to his lodgings, Hastings carried with him the weight of the case, the word time. the delicate balance of justice, and the brilliance of hercule Poirot, whose little grey cells had once again illuminated the darkest corners of the human heart. Chapter 14. A new dawned village of St. Mary Mead lay quiet under a starlit sky. Its cottages nestled in the embrace of the Devon countryside. Hercule Poirot's small stone cottage, with its neatly trimmed garden, seemed a world away from the turmoil of Crestwood Manor. Yet, as Captain Arthur Hastings sat across from Poirot in the cozy sitting room, a cup of steaming tisane in hand, the echoes of the case lingered. The fire crackled softly, casting flickering shadows on the walls, and Hastings felt a need to unravel the final threads of the mystery that had consumed them. Hercule Poirot, settled in an armchair with his own cup of tisane, looked every inch the contented detective, his eyes half closed in contemplation. But Hastings knew better. Poirot's mind was never truly at rest, not even after a case as intricate as Sir Reginald Ashburn's murder had been solved. The revelation of Mrs. Evelyn Carver and Dr. Maurice Langley as the culprits, driven by greed and betrayal, had closed the investigation, but questions remained, nagging at Hastings' practical mind. Poirot, Hastings began, setting his cup down. "It's all tied up neatly, I suppose, Mrs. Carver, Dr. Langley, the window, the screen. But there's something I can't shake. Miss Devereux's notebook, those notes about the shadow, the orchids. Was she really just an observer, or was there more to her role?" Poirot's eyes opened fully, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Mon ami, you are like a dog with a bone, always seeking the last morsel of truth. Mademoiselle Devereux, she is a fascinating figure, n'est-ce pas? Her notebook, it is her shield, her way of ordering the world. She saw the shadow. She noted the time 5 minutes past 9 because she is a woman of precision. But you are correct to wonder. She knew more than she said, though not enough to be complicit." Hastings leaned forward, intrigued. "You mean she suspected Mrs. Carver or Langley?" Poirot nodded, sipping his tisane. "Perhaps not by name, but she sensed the undercurrents. Her note about the shadow was no accident. It was a warning to herself, a record of something amiss. Had she understood its full meaning, she might have spoken sooner. But Mademoiselle Devereux, she prefers to observe, to let others act. In this, she is like Poirot, but without the courage to confront." Hastings frowned, his mind turning to another detail, and Clara her fear that her uncle was threatened. "You cleared her of suspicion, but was there ever a chance she could have been involved?" Poirot's expression grew somber. "Mademoiselle Clara, she is a soul torn by love and loss. Her fear was genuine, her grief real. Sir Reginald's talk of changing his will, of threats from someone closet weighed heavily on her. But her heart, it is not that of a killer. The little grey cells, they saw her innocence in her tears, her hesitation. She was a victim of this crime, not its architect." Hastings nodded, his thoughts drifting to the manor itself. Crestwood Manor, it's such a grand place. Yet it feels tainted now. "Do you think Clara will stay there, or will she sell it?" Poirot set his cup down, his fingers steepled. "The manor, it is a place of beauty, but also of memory. For Mademoiselle Clara, it will always hold her uncle's shadow. I suspect she will leave, perhaps to start anew, to escape the ghosts of betrayal. The will, when it is found, will give her the means to choose her path. Sir Reginald, he was a man of honor, and I believe he intended to provide for her, despite his concerns. The fire popped, sending a spark into the air, and Hastings seized the moment to ask one final question. The dagger. Poirot, that Persian dagger. Mrs. Carver's travels to the east. The way it was used so deliberately, was it just a weapon, or did it mean something more? Poirot's eyes gleamed, a spark of delight at the question. The dagger, mon ami, it was a symbol as much as a weapon. Madame Carver, she chose it for its exotic allure, perhaps to cast suspicion elsewhere, to suggest an outsider, a stranger. But it was also her arrogance, her belief that such a flourish would obscure her guilt. The dagger, like the wax, like the bottle, was a mistake. It revealed her, for only someone with her travels, her connections, would possess such a thing. Hastings leaned back, marveling at Poirot's insight. You see everything, don't you? Every little detail. Every slip. It's almost uncanny. Poirot chuckled, a warm, genuine sound. Not uncanny, Hastings methodical. The world. It is a puzzle, and the little gray cells. They find the pieces. The wax, the shadow, the scream, the word time. They were the threads. And Poirot, he weaves them into truth. But this case, it reminds us that truth, it comes at a cost. The human heart, it is fragile, and we must tread lightly. The clock on the mantel chimed midnight, its soft tolling marking the end of a long journey. Hastings rose, stretching his limbs. Well, Poirot, you've done it again, solved the impossible, brought justice to Crestwood Manor. What's next? Another mystery? Or will you actually take a holiday? Poirot's smile was enigmatic, his eyes twinkling in the firelight. A holiday, Hastings. Perhaps a short one, with many cups of tisane. But the world, it is never quiet for long. There will be another puzzle, another truth to uncover, and Poirot, he will be ready. They parted with a handshake, Hastings stepping out into the cool night air, the stars bright above St. Mary Mead. Crestwood Manor was behind them, its secrets laid bare, its tragedy resolved. But as he walked to his lodgings, Hastings carried with him the weight of the case. The word time, the wax, the shadow would linger in Hastings' memory, a testament to the brilliance of Hercule Poirot and the enduring complexity of the human soul. Chapter 15. The echoes of truth. Morning sun bathed St. Mary Mead in a gentle glow, its golden rays filtering through the lace curtains of Hercule Poirot's cottage, where the scent of fresh tisane mingled with the faint aroma of blooming roses outside. Captain Arthur Hastings, lingering in the village after the intense days at Crestwood Manor, sat once more at Poirot's small dining table, a plate of scones and a pot of tea before them. The resolution of Sir Reginald Ashburn's murder had brought a sense of closure, yet Hastings felt a lingering need to reflect, to ensure no detail of the intricate case had been overlooked. Hercule Poirot, ever the picture of calm precision, sipped his tisane, his green eyes thoughtful, as if the case still danced in the corners of his mind. Poirot, Hastings began, breaking a scone in half. I keep going over it all, the wax, the scream, the window. You tied it up so neatly. But there's something about the human side of it that nags at me. Mrs. Carver and Dr. Langley, they seem so ordinary. Yet, they planned something so cold. How do people fall so far? Poirot set his cup down, his fingers steepled in that familiar gesture of contemplation. Mon ami, the human heart, it is a mystery as great as any crime. Madame Carver and Dr. Langley, they were not monsters, but people swayed by their desires, greed, fear, resentment. These are the threads that unravel even the most ordinary soul. They saw in Sir Reginald's wealth, his will, a chance to secure their futures, and they chose betrayal over honor. It is not so uncommon, alas. Hastings nodded, his thoughts drifting to the manor's other inhabitants. And Clara, she is the one I feel for most. Losing her uncle, learning of such deceit. You said she's strong, but will she ever trust again? Poirot's expression softened, a rare warmth in his eyes. Mademoiselle Clara, she is wounded, but the heart, it heals. Her love for her uncle, it was true, and that truth will anchor her. The will, as Inspector Grayson's letter confirmed, leaves her much of Sir Reginald's estate. She has the means to forge a new path, perhaps far from Crestwood's shadows. Trust, it will return. But slowly, with time, Hastings sipped his tea, the warmth grounding him, and Miss Devereux her notebook, her silence. I can't help but wonder if she'll ever share what she saw beyond those cryptic notes. Poirot chuckled, a soft, knowing sound. Mademoiselle Devereux, she is a watcher of the world, not a player in its dramas. Her notebook, it is her sanctuary, where she records the truth she dare not speak. But this case, it has stirred something in her. Perhaps, in time, she will find the courage to act on her observations, to step from the shadows. For now, she remains the silent witness, and that is her strength. The conversation paused as a soft breeze carried the scent of roses through the open window. Hastings' mind turned to the manor itself, its grand halls now tainted by tragedy. Crestwood Manor, he mused. It's such a beautiful place, but it feels like it's lost its heart. Do you think it could ever be a home again? Poirot's gaze grew distant, his voice measured. The manor, it is a shell, Hastings a place of stone and memory. Its heart was Sir Reginald, and with his loss, it is diminished. But places, like people, can be reborn. If Clara chooses to sell, new owners may bring life to its halls. If she stays, she may find a way to honor her uncle's memory, to make it a place of light again. The choice, it is hers, and it will shape the manor's future. Hastings leaned back, his thoughts circling back to the case's pivotal moment. That word, time, it still amazes me how it unlocked everything. The way Mrs. Carver and Langley manipulated the scream, the timing, it was so clever, yet so fragile. Was there ever a moment you thought you might not solve it? Poirot's smile was serene, his confidence unshaken. None, Hastings. The little gray cells, they are relentless. The puzzle was complex, with a locked room, the scream, the wax, but complexity is merely a matter of order waiting to be found. The shadow at 9:05, the scream at 10:10. These were the cracks in their plan. The wax, the bottle, the scratch on the rack, they were the fingerprints of their carelessness. Poirot, he sees the pattern, and the pattern always leads to truth. Hastings shook his head, a grin spreading across his face. You make it sound so inevitable. But I was lost half the time. That window bolt trick, using a wire to lock it from outside, it was devilishly simple. Simplicity, mon ami, is the mark of true cunning. Poirot said. Madame Carver and Dr. Langley, they thought their plan was flawless, but they forgot the human element, their own flaws. The wax was her mistake, the scream his. Together, they wove a web, but it was not strong enough to hold against the little gray cells. A knock at the door interrupted them, and a messenger delivered a small parcel addressed to Poirot. Inside was a note from Clara, written in a steady hand. Mr. Poirot, I am leaving Crestwood for London. The manor is too heavy with memories. I've found Uncle's will, and it is as you suspected. He left me his estate, with funds for the village. I will use it to start anew, to honor him. Thank you for giving me the truth, however painful. Yours, Clara Ashburn. Poirot read the note aloud, his voice soft with approval. Bon, she has chosen her path, Hastings. The truth. It has set her free. Hastings felt a warmth at Clara's words, a sense that justice had not only been served, but had paved the way for healing. And what of you, Poirot? Another case, or will you linger here in St. Mary Mead, tending your roses? Poirot's eyes sparkled with mischief. The roses, they are charming, but the world, it calls. There will be another mystery, another challenge for the little gray cells. For now, I shall enjoy the peace of this village, the order of my garden. But Poirot, he is never far from the next puzzle. They stepped outside, the morning air crisp and fragrant with the promise of a new day. St. Mary Mead buzzed with quiet life, its villagers unaware of the drama that had unfolded nearby. Hastings looked at Poirot, whose small figure seemed to carry the weight of countless truths, his mind already turning to the next adventure. Crestwood Manor was behind them, its secrets unraveled, its justice complete, but the echoes of the case, the word time, the delicate dance of truth and deception would linger, a testament to the enduring brilliance of Hercule Poirot.